Hi, my name is JD and this is my channel Frost and Forest. And so today I am going to share with you my full moon practice. By the time this video goes up, the full moon should be happening the following week. So I thought that this would be a good time to kind of go through this in case it helps other people with ideas for maybe how they like to pull cards on the full moon. So starting out, the first deck I pull out is this deck. It's the Sacred Ireland Celtic Moon deck. And in this deck, they have a card for each one of the moons. And so for March, when this video comes out, this will be the next moon, the sap moon. And so for this, the keyword is vitality. So after I figure out what moon is that month, then I go to the guidebook and I look at what the entry is for that moon. And so I'm gonna just move this over here in case some folks would prefer to read instead of being read to. But for the sap moon, it is your energy is enhanced. Go with the flow of increased motivation. Spend time outside in the fresh air to boost your vitality. Your new project or hobby awaits you. March is when the sap or vital life force, plant fluid in the trees and shrubs have been dormant and rises once more. This is in response to the returning sunlight. Like them, we too react to the stimulus of positive change as we grow with increased vitality. So that's what I'm working with. And of course, the first thing that comes to mind for me being in the forestry industry is maple syrup. This time of year is a big syruping time of year, although with climate change, it's getting earlier and earlier. But this entry just made me think of trees right away. And so I'm going to keep that in mind. But after reading that description, my next step is then I pull out my spread machine oracle deck. And so the way that works is I essentially, after reading that description, I just go through this deck one time and try to narrow down cards that I think might be good for a spread that relates to the sap moon. And I keep in mind what I read in the guidebook and kind of what it was talking about, the ideas that involved, the energy around the sap moon, all of that. And so after, let's pretend I went through all of them, because I did, then I will bring in the ones that I narrowed it down. And so for me, what I kind of took away from that description is thinking about growing towards something, starting something new, making something happen, new energy, just kind of all of those things stood out to me. And so these are the cards in the spread machine that I sort of narrowed down to be possible cards to include in my spread around the sap moon. And so guide, again, if you're thinking about success, it's a success card and moving towards something. Manifest, part of the description talked about making something happen, and so that made sense to me. Projection, maybe that one, maybe I read that one wrong, I don't know. Lead, like where are you trying to go? Again, that's a success card. Innovate, so making something new happen. Purpose, seeker, potential, explore, intention, goals. I kind of pulled this out because this is a good one if you want like sort of an overarching energy for the spread, especially because this one seemed sort of goal oriented. So I pulled this one out because I thought it might be a good one to pull an oracle card around. And then motivation. Those are the kind of cards that I was thinking about. Of those cards that I chose, I narrowed it down because I didn't want to do a super big spread. And so what I ended up choosing to go with Vitality is, I can see myself pulling sort of an overarching card for goal, and then a card, the first card in the spread would be intention. So, you know, what am I trying to achieve or make happen? Then the next card that made sense to me was motivation. So what, you know, what is going to make that goal happen and help me have momentum around it? And then manifest, which is what am I trying to achieve? And so this is kind of what I'm aiming at around this moon, is I'm going to use these spread cards to create a spread that goes along with the sap moon. So after I have my moon card, I have picked out the cards that I'm going to use as my spread from the Spread Machine Oracle. Then the next step is to pick a deck or decks that I want to work with. Given the cards that I decided to use from the Spread Machine, I'm going to guess that I'm going to have at least 2 decks, one that fits with this overarching energy, and then at least one that fits for the rest of these 3. Again, like I said, when I first pulled this card out, I was really thinking tree energy. Maples immediately came to mind, and so I kind of started by pulling out a lot of my tree decks to see where to go from there. So I'm just going to move this. Let's see. So that I can show you some of the decks that I am thinking. The first deck that came to mind is the Forager's Daughter Tarot. The reason I chose the Forager's Daughter is because, like I said, the first thing that came to mind is maple syrup. I love that star card. And this is the only deck that I could think of off the top of mine, or off the top of my head, that it has maple in it, like maple trees, is this one. And so, for example, right here, you can see that these are maple leaves. And so that's why this one immediately came to mind. I also think that this feels like kind of a spring deck to me, this specific edition, the Afterlight edition, because it has those lighter borders. So not only am I thinking about the a deck that has the energy that I'm looking for, but also a deck that kind of fits this time of year. And so this deck, I think, does both. Now, as I'm oh, there's a perfect example, maple, right there. But as I'm looking at this, I do feel like I'm getting a little bit distracted by the animals and the crystals and other things that are in this deck. So I'm not entirely sure that this is the one that I'm looking for. Also, I'm sorry if my voice is kind of raspy. I was at a work event yesterday where I was basically talking to people all day, and so my voice is a little bit gravelly, so we'll see how that goes. So I'm not entirely sure that this is what I'm going for. So another tree deck I have is, and this is a little big to fit in my small spot, is the Wisdom of Trees Oracle. So for a long time, I avoided this deck just because, one, it only had 40 cards, which at the time did not feel like enough cards to me, as well as the fact that it has trees from all over the world. And I sometimes have trouble with nature decks that focus on all over the world and put things together from all over the world, just because it feels wrong to me, like they don't feel like they belong together. So I didn't get this deck right away, but I did see this on, I think it's Shanna's channel recently. And I decided I would give it a try because the art is beautiful and it does feel very much like tree energy to me. And so I've tried it and I've really liked it. And this is feeling like the right kind of energy for what I'm trying to do. It feels like growth, it feels like trees, and it is a beautiful deck that I love to use. And when did you look at that? There's a sugar maple card in it, which is one of the better species for making maple syrup. So I could see myself using this deck potentially as this sort of goal card, this overarching energy. Yeah, so I guess I'm showing you all the cards. But yeah, I think that this is a big contender, or a very real contender, for this full moon. The next deck that I have that I'm thinking about is the Crystal Forest Oracle. This is a deck that I really like. I don't love that it's a little hard to see what the crystal is, because each of the cards, while they look like forests, are associated with a crystal. But it's a little hard to see the crystal name and the keyword on them. But I do think that this is a beautiful deck. It does feel in some ways more crystally to me than it does forest. And so if I'm looking for that vitality or that growth or that plant feeling, I'm not sure that this is quite the deck I'm looking for. I mean, some of these cards feel more foresty, but for example, Pink Forest. It's beautiful and it's very artistic. I'm just not sure that this one is the one I'm going for this spread. Another tree or oracle deck, apparently I have a lot of tree oracles, is the Tree Keeper's Oracle. This deck I actually haven't used a ton. I've had it for a while, but I haven't used it. But I do think it's beautiful. The art is so detailed. And it does feel very green. Actually, looking at this might go really well with the Crystal Forest that I just showed you, maybe. But again, this almost feels more like a fairy deck to me, or a fae deck, and less like a tree deck. I mean, it definitely takes place in a forest or exists in a forest, but I'm not entirely sure that this is what I'm going for. But I am feeling like, given the time of year, this I think is a deck I want to pull out and use in March. I just might not use it for my full moon spread. I love this card. I love that card so much. Okay, so then my last tree deck is the Tarot of Trees. This is the smaller version. It says the third. Sorry, I apparently can't see. It's the 5th edition. This is a really pretty deck. I don't use this deck enough, I don't think. I love the bright colors. I love how each suit, like we're in the sword suit, have very similar colors. So it's easy to tell what suit you're in. The suits are matched to different seasons, I believe. That Hermit card is nice. And so Pentacles is winter. Yeah, I mean, I like this deck. I don't know how well it would pair with the Wisdom of Trees Oracle, which I really do like. And these seem more like cartoon trees, which is great and still beautiful. But I'm not sure if this is what I'm gonna do or not. Okay, so after thinking about it for a minute, I did have one more idea. So let me go grab it. So one thing I just thought about is the Seed and Sickle Oracle. This is not necessarily a tree deck, but it is a plant deck. And it is a really good all-around deck that I like. It does feel like it could fit this time of year. And the other thing that made me think of it is this deck specifically has a guidebook that focuses on manifesting goals. That's what the Dawn guidebook is all about. And so that made me think that maybe this would be a good deck to use. And I could see myself using this for these cards, the other three that are kind of the cards that will be under that broad goal. Okay. So I want to see what they look like together, the two decks that I'm thinking about. So the art doesn't perfectly match, but they do very much have that plant energy to them, the idea of vitality. Yeah, I think I like this. Even if the art doesn't match perfectly, I think this is what I'm looking for. I will say that this is a little bit unusual. I don't usually, for my full moon spreads, use two oracle decks together. Usually it's an oracle and a tarot. But I just think with the guidebook for the Seed and Sickle, that just feels perfect for what this spread has turned into. You know, when the full moons happens, I will lay this card out, and then I will lay my 4 cards from the spread machine out, and then I will use the Wisdom of the Trees Oracle as sort of my overarching idea, and then I will use Seed and Sickle for sort of the underlying ideas. So yeah, I hope this is helpful for you and gives you some new ideas for how you can maybe do your full moon spread. One of the things that I love about this method is it does mean that each month it's something new, and it never really gets boring because it's a completely brand new spread that is specific for that month. So yeah, thanks for stopping by.